All right, thank you. It's great to be here. I'm Kelly Roman, co-founder, CEO of Fisher Wallace Labs. We're a medical device company based in Brooklyn, in the old Pfizer building, if some of you know Brooklyn. We've developed and have actually commercialized a proof of concept version of wearable brain stimulation for the treatment of depression. And according to the published science, we currently have the fastest treatment for depression that's free of serious side effects. So it works in the first week. We have statistical significance that it works in the first week in our last clinical trial, and no serious side effects. Minor side effects are headache and dizziness. So if I can, we share the screen here. You can actually see what I'm describing here.
Is it a medicine?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna show. Yeah, I thought it was already up when I was talking, but this is this is a wearable brain stimulation device that patients wear 20 minutes when they wake up and 20 minutes before bed. And we've spent about 10 years developing this technology. What you're seeing here is the version 2. The mechanism of action here is inducing neuroplasticity. Basically, the brain, you think of it as an electrical system, and this stimulation is causing neurons to fire and regions of the brain to communicate with each other that just they're not able to do that in patients without this help. And so, if you're able to improve brain function rapidly, dramatically, you're going to have a positive impact on all kinds of conditions. Sleep, anxiety, depression, memory, all the cognitive side of things. So we focused on depression because it's the biggest crisis that really, it's one of the largest crises that we face. It's up there with the environment and everything else. I think that one reason I was excited to come here and talk to you is because it's something that affects every family. Probably affects in one way or another everyone in the room, right? Whether it's a grandparent or a child or spouse, and there's no one that can really be insulated from this. So it becomes a very personal thing to go after this as a treatment, and I think that's part of the connection I'm looking for in family offices. We have one family office that's an investor, Shuffle Capital. They came in on it in the seed round. A couple of statistics on depression. Everyone knows it's a massive problem, but I think what you may not know is that Gen Z, Gen Alpha have the highest prevalence. So about half of people under 24 are experiencing depression, clinical depression. And it also, that age group accounts for the growth in spending on treatment. So about 42% of the mental health treatment is coming from Gen Z and Gen Alpha, or the parents paying for it. And so when we were developing this treatment, and we looked at it from a clinical scientific side, but we also wanted a product that younger generations would want to use, something that feels like an extension of the wearables that they've kind of grown up with. And so obviously Apple doesn't play in the medical device space, but we kind of tried to bring that sensibility to the hardware. We brought on board the designers of Beats, which is now an Apple brand, Nest, and HoloLens to help engineer and on the industrial design. So we have something that works very fast, doesn't have any serious side effects, and has the approachability of a consumer wearable, even though this is a Class 3 medical device. Unlike most medical device companies, we were actually able to commercialize a proof of concept device, which I don't have a picture of here, but it's a much cruder version of this with a headband, a couple of electrodes that hang down. And we were able to do that because the FDA was wanting to update what was actually a pretty archaic category of regulation called CES that applied to wearable brain stimulation. And in 2011, they wanted to bring a full approval process to that. which would require a huge clinical trial. We, at the time in 2011, didn't have the money to do that. And so we actually made an argument that because we had at least proven the device is safe, that the FDA should allow this temporary clearance to extend, basically while we could gain more information and fund more research and raise money. Otherwise, it would have killed the category. And with the help of Congress, Carolyn Maloney, Bob Gates, even Donald Rumsfeld wrote a letter on our behalf because of his interest in treating veterans, and he was very aware of the need for it. The FDA gave us this window of more than a decade, it turned out, after we were finished. And over that time, we sold over 100,000 devices to 92,000 patients, 14,000 prescribers. We obtained Medicaid coverage in Maine, and the Seattle Police Department actually adopted our technology. So we were able to basically prove product market fit, and we only raised $12 million over this time. So 12 million raised, 40 million in revenue. We could sell this a cruder version profitably. And most importantly, it gave us some time to raise some money for some key clinical trials that we knew ultimately we were going to need for an approval process. So the FDA did finally end our clearance. We had been preparing for that for a couple of years. So now we're on the full approval path that they originally wanted to start happening in 2011. We're on that path now. But the advantage is we have all of this history with this proof of concept, and we recently completed a 4-week clinical trial with our version 2 device that's going to be going through this approval process. So this was a triple-blind, placebo-controlled trial that we conducted last year and just finished the biostats a few months ago. 225 subjects, great CROs, very well-regarded principal investigator, and we had statistically significant results at weeks 1, 2, and 4. That's where we measured. By the first week, severe depression patients, 2/3 of the patient population, cut their symptoms in half, right, or more. So half of the subjects on active cut their symptoms by at least 50% in the first week. By week 4, it was 3/4 of the active group cut their symptoms by 50% or more. That's just very extraordinary results, especially to do that with severe patients. If you can really reduce those symptoms that rapidly, has a lot of downstream effects. It means people will continue to comply to treatment because they're not sitting there waiting for it to happen. Yep.
How much does the device cost?
So our version 1 costs.
What does it do?
Yeah.
What does it do to the brain? I mean,
so these are electrodes on either side of the device. You can see those white pods. Those are the electrodes. This device will cost about $75 to manufacture. Our version 1 costs $36 to manufacture. We plan to retail this. Think of it as about $500 in revenue, whether it's a one-time purchase or we're going to test a subscription model for this, kind of like a cell phone.
Insurance pays for it?
We got Medicaid coverage in Maine for version 1. So we've established that Medicaid will pay for it. They paid $400 for the version 1. And so we feel like we can knock all those dominoes down with version 2.
So a couple questions.
Yeah.
What classification is your device?
Class 3.
2?
It's class 3. Yeah, for depression, it's class 3.
Okay.
So it's a full approval process. What we're doing now is we're raising money to launch our 10-week pivotal trial, but we're not doing it without knowing if it's going to work. We just had a very successful 4-week trial. So we're going to do a 10-week trial. I can't announce it yet, but we're doing it in conjunction with, I think most people consider as the most prominent depression researcher out of a hospital in Boston. I'd be happy to share that confidentially. We'll be announcing it, I think, in January. So we're gonna have this study, and it'll take about 7 months to execute, and then 290 days for the FDA to go through approval process. So we're going after the U.S. market and Europe, FDA approval, CE marks. To your point, in Europe, it's a class 2B device, so it's a little bit less. And I understand medical device investing can be tricky because it can be a long path to market, right? That's probably the biggest hurdle. If you look at an in-clinic form of brain stimulation, where you have to go into a clinic and there's a doctor administering it, it's kind of the precursor to this wearable form of it. That took 5 years from the Series A to the FDA clearance. They were class 2. We're realistically looking at 18 to 24 months from the funding to commercialization.
So in your clinical studies, what size is your pool? Are you looking at biomarkers such as inflammation?
Inflammation? Yeah.
Or cortisol, or what biomarkers are you specifically looking at, or is it just
Oh, it was great question. So we're going to replicate now. We're going through a protocol approval process first with FDA, so that there's no question if we hit the marks that we get approved. The FDA only does that for class 3. They put it down in writing and it's fine. So the 4-week trial, we did the Beck depression inventory. That's what we're planning to do for the 10-week. That is I would say the gold standard of self-report depression scales, and that makes sense because this device is designed to be used remotely. It's not something that you need lots of doctor visits. So that's going to be the scale for depression. And what I'm figuring out with the team in Boston is, do we want to layer on some cognitive tests? And that would be more for marketing. So the BDI, the Beck depression, that's for approval. But if we get some great results also on the cognitive test, that can help for marketing. So I think we're going to layer that on.
But you're not actually doing blood testing or biomarker?
We're not doing blood. No, not. We're applying for an Alzheimer's study through the Alzheimer's Drug Discovery Foundation. That will give us an opportunity to do much more mechanism of action, brain imagery. I think the kinds of things where we can really flesh out the gritty details of how it works. But here we're just looking at symptom reduction.
We have time for 2 more questions, please, no longer than a 30-second answer.
I just have a quick question. So you're not doing any kind of like response feedback pre-treatment to see how it is the condition of the brain pre-treatment and then post, or it's just.
We're not doing imagery.
Recorded?
Yeah, this is going to be, there is a clinical interview process. There's a 2-week lead-in. So there are clinicians that are actually have to provide the diagnosis. And then the patients go into the self-reporting phase. And so the biomarkers and the imagery, that doesn't apply. The FDA doesn't require that for approval when you're looking for depression.
Okay,
that's something we'll get into later.
Gar?
Is this a placebo control trial or is this?
Yes, it is. Yeah. And so is the 4-week trial. The sham device
Last question over here.
looks and acts, except it doesn't deliver stimulation.
Last question over here.
Have you thought at all, like, what does this do if you don't have depression? Is there a wellness play here?
Well, that's part of the cognitive testing that we're going to layer on. I think just a note there, the FDA and Europe are being a lot more strict on letting wellness slide without regulation.
Great. Well, fantastic.
Thank you.
Questions. Thanks so much.
Appreciate it.